So you can grow some of your coriander in containers so that you don't have to buy them all the time from the market. So in this video, as you can see there, we have two containers in which we have propagated coriander, and the space needed by the coriander is not quite large, or the containers needed they are not very large. Just an average 5-liter water bottle container is enough to grow your coriander at home, just in your veranda, in your backyard. So this essentially means that you will need three things: one, the containers themselves; two, some soil or some suitable media to grow the coriander within the containers; and of course the third one is the seeds to sow within the containers. You will also need water, as usual. You don't have to forget that. You will need water to enable the plants to actually thrive within the containers. And the advantage with the using containers here, especially with regard to water, is that you just need very little amount of water to be watering your coriander plants as they grow in the containers, because of the fact that the water is not wasted at all. Once you pour it into the soil within the container, then it will be absorbed directly into the soil. It's not like growing in the open space, whereby some water may be lost to the sides of the open garden. So here all the water will be absorbed into the soil within your container, and therefore save you the hassle of having to allocate so much of water to water your plants if it was in an open space type of cultivation. And here we propagate several seeds within the containers, whereby in an average container of that size shown there, you can have about 12 to 15 seeds in one of the containers. And if you're lucky enough that the coriander germinates in the form of 2 seedlings per seed, then you'll of course have adequate amounts of coriander for your consumption. Most of the coriander seeds, when they're germinating, they usually give out 2 seedlings per seed. So meaning that if you have enough seedlings sowed into the soil within your container, you have enough supply of coriander for your own consumption. So this implies that if you have many more containers, then of course you can have plenty of coriander, some of which you can even supply to your friends and neighbors. Maybe if you live in a place which you have good neighbors, or even neighbors anyway, you can supply some of them with the coriander if you have in excess. Now the process of preparing the soil is just as usual with the open garden soil preparation, whereby you have to till the soil in the garden and soften it up. The same thing here. Don't put that soil which is very clumped together. Ensure you loosen it up, just using your hand to mix it up a little bit. You can also mix in there in the soil some manure, some organic manure, maybe beef or cow manure. Sometimes they call them beef, depending on the context of the country. Cow manure is commonly referred to, so it's commonly used as a term within the African context. You can also use chicken manure to ensure that your soil is enriched with enough organic manure there, or any other plant materials which you can cut into small pieces and incorporate into the soil, and that will ensure that your soil has enough supply of readily available nutrients to facilitate the plants to grow well as they are thriving within the container. Now after you've prepared your soil, remember these containers, if you don't perforate holes at the bottom of the container, then the containers will tend to be clogged or logged with water, and that would make the soil to be soggy, right? So it is recommended, and there is no option to that, you must perforate several holes at the bottom of the container to allow drainage of excess water from the container, so that the soil doesn't become soggy with water and therefore prevent optimal growth of the plants as shown there. So in these containers, any bottle container of this size, you should perforate about 7 to 8 holes, and the holes can be perforated using an ordinary wood nail or any other device. You can even use a knife if you can manage to use a knife. And those 7 to 8 holes there, they usually ensure that there is adequate drainage of water from the container so that the soil doesn't become soggy with water. And subsequently, after that, then you put the soil, of course, which you have prepared by mixing some manure. And then after you've had the soil put into the containers, then it will be the time to now make the holes where you're going to sow the seeds. The holes on top of the soil should be very minimal in depth, maximum of about 3/4 inch, or maximum up to 1 inch, but usually 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch is usually recommended. Reason being, the coriander plants, when they're germinating, they are usually very soft and they will not need so much of weight on top of them when they are pushing out of the soil in order to sprout and germinate as coriander seedlings. So that means that the lesser the depth of the hole which you put on the soil, the better, because that will mean that there will be lesser weight for the seedlings to push through when they're germinating and appearing on the surface. And of course, after you've put the holes there, then you have to put the seeds within the holes, and then and then cover the seeds with very little amount of soil or light amount of soil, and that will of course again prevent so much load on top of the seedlings when they're germinating and trying to push off the soil on top of them to appear as seedlings on the top of the soil. After the seedlings have actually germinated, then you can then continue with the normal processes of watering, and after some time, of course, the plants will start to show quite a number of leaves. In the first stage, when they've just shown 2 leaves, ensure you keep watering so that they establish themselves well, and subsequently you also continue putting enough water onto them so that they keep on surviving and thriving well within the container. That implies that plants of this size, for example, they have been in this container for approximately 1.5 months, between 1.5 months to 2 months, and you can see that their health is okay, except that some of them have already shown signs of trying to bolt. And bolting in this case is the process of a seedling or a plant running quickly to form the seeds instead of forming enough leaves. So bolting is sometimes caused by several factors, including several abiotic factors, which are not biological factors, but several abiotic factors. And those factors, if you can manage to identify them, then you can obviate them from the plant so that the plant thrives in your containers very nicely. But generally, if you maintain the plants in that way with adequate watering, then you'll have a good supply of your coriander, which you can then use in your diet. And remember, coriander is a very good source of vitamins and other plant compounds which can enhance your health from your diet. So that's a very easy method of propagating coriander for you to use at home.